What are you most proud of in your career?
I think it's the contribution that I made along with a lot of other people to turning apartheid back into the woodwork. I think that the moment that I'm most proud of is that on May 10th of 1994, I stood with my mentor and my role model. His name was George Hauser. If George was alive today, he would be 105 years old. But I started reading about him in the 1960s. In 1944, George Hauser was on a freedom ride. I think most people think the freedom ride started in the 1960s. He was actually on one in 1944. He founded the Congress of Racial Equality. He spent 2 years in jail as a conscientious objector. He founded the anti-apartheid movements and the anti-colonial movements in the United States, and he was a white guy. So when I read about him, it gave me hope that as a white guy, I might be able to make a contribution someday. I eventually became friends with him, and because of that friendship, we found ourselves in Lusaka in Zambia in 1977. And I said to George, do you think we'll ever see the day when Nelson Mandela will be free and apartheid will end and Zimbabwe and Namibia will become free? 1977, there was no way that anybody could predict that was going to happen. Mandela was 12 years away from being released. The reality was that people thought he was going to die in prison of tuberculosis, which is what the rumors were. Apartheid was at its height. And George said to me, Rich, I don't have any evidence for this, but I believe we'll live to see that day. And on May 10th of 1994, I stood by George Hauser's side on the steps of the Union buildings in South Africa, both of us as Nelson Mandela's guests, to watch him become inaugurated as president. And I knew that day that anything and everything is possible. Whatever social justice issue out there seems insurmountable, if this man could have become president of this country, where he was a political prisoner for 27 years and the most hated person in the country by the power structure all those years, suddenly become its president, that anything and everything is possible. After the inauguration, Nelson Mandela invited me and the person I was with, whose name was Sam Ramsamy, the head of the non-racial sports movement in South Africa, to attend his soccer game in Johannesburg with him. He didn't go to any of the parties that were there to celebrate his presidency. He went back to Johannesburg to go to this game, and sitting in the box, I asked him, now, Mr. President, why are you here instead of all those diplomatic parties? And I was pretty sure, AJ, that I knew what the answer would be, but I wanted to hear him say it. He said, I wanted my people to know that I know that because of the sacrifices our athletes made during the sports boycott, I was freed sooner than I would have been from prison, and I became president sooner than I would have been. And for me, it was the biggest power of sports story that I could tell or have at the time, and still is. And I know that we were sitting in the box in the stadium where the World Rugby Cup was scheduled to take place the next year. And you probably know that a book and movie were written about that, the World Rugby Cup, to try to bring his people together. The movie was called Invictus. And I have no doubt that afternoon in Johannesburg on May 10th of 1994, he was not thinking about his becoming president, but how he would use that presidency to bring his people together.